Use your beliefs to build more discipline. A belief is when you consider something as true. And one of the great things about beliefs is that we can believe whatever we want to believe without having any evidence required for it. That means we can make up whatever future expectation and a future belief that's positive that we want to achieve. And guess what? By having that positive expectation, we'll be more motivated to be disciplined, to put forth action to achieve the outcome. So what we need to do is build empowering beliefs. But how? How do we have better beliefs? Well, there's one way, and that's building faith. And there's two types of faith. There's dead faith, which is considering something as true, but not having action that backs up what you consider as true. For example, you could say, I believe in the Christian God, yet live as a hypocrite. That's dead faith. You could say he's true, and you could actually believe that he is real, like the demons believe he's real, but still not live it out. That is dead faith. And there's another type of faith, which is saving faith. In that context, is having actions that back up your belief in God. In another context, is having actions that back up what you say is true. And that's why I call it action-driven faith. And that's what I want to talk about today. How can we have action-driven faith? Because when we have that type of faith, we're going to consider something as true and have actions that back up that belief. Thus, we have more discipline. So what do we need to do to build this type of faith? One thing we can do is practice focus. Focus is directing my thoughts towards something. And when we focus on something, we tend to believe that more. Why? Well, one definition of faith, this is inspired by Myron Golden, I redefined it, is faith is focusing on the evidence that proves my beliefs. For example, Peter, the Apostle Peter, he was walking on water towards Jesus. Now, no one in history has ever walked on water besides Jesus Christ. Yet Peter, despite all the facts that could go against this belief that he could walk on water, he said, Lord Jesus, call to me if you want me to come to you on the water. And Jesus said, come. So Peter is focusing on Jesus as he's walking towards him on the water. However, when he notices the winds and the waves and the different things around him, guess what? That awareness of other things puts his thoughts towards something else, puts his focus towards something else instead of on Jesus Christ, the evidence that proves that he could walk on water. So because of that, doubt starts arising within him, and he no longer has the faith to do what he had the ability to do when he had faith. And that's what people do. They focus once again on disempowering expectations, disempowering things that they consider as true. And because of that, they're now contradicting themselves because they can't get a good outcome when you're focused on the wrong thing consistently. So what we need to do is reframe our focus. Choose to focus on something positive. How? Well, it's simple. Think of something positive because you can make up a belief. You say, man, I'm going to win this dunk contest. I'm going to win this basketball game. I'm going to get a good grade in this test. You can make that up. And by making that up and just focusing on it, guess what? That is building faith. See, one difference between faith and belief is that faith almost always requires evidence while our beliefs don't. So how do we have evidence to back up our faith when we have nothing that we can rely on? Where belief itself is evidence we can focus on to build faith within ourselves. Because when we believe something, we're building confidence within ourselves that we can achieve the outcome we're believing for. So make up an outcome, focus on it, you have more confidence. Believe in yourself that you can achieve that thing you're focusing on, and you build more faith. And by having more faith, now you're ready to have the actions that back up that faith that you choose to have. That is one way to build action-driven faith, focus. Another way to build action-driven faith is intensity. Another way I define faith is how long you can persist without knowing when the outcome will come. And I got this definition from the prophet Elijah. Elijah went to a widow's house and the widow's son had died. So why Elijah goes to God and say, oh Lord my God, I pray, let this child's soul come back to him. And nothing happened. So he prayed again. Oh Lord my God, I pray, let this child's soul come back to him. And again, nothing happened. So at that moment, the child clearly is dead. There's no evidence that a man could rise from the dead. There's no evidence that if he prays for a child, this guy is going to rise. But Elijah had faith. He was willing to persist without knowing when the outcome is going to come. And that's what we need to do with our beliefs. When we consider something as true, in Elijah's case, this guy's going to rise from the dead, or hey, I'm going to make the MBA, hey, I'm going to get an A in my math test, where we make up something in our mind and consider it true, and we have faith that persists regardless of the obstacles, regardless of lack of evidence, regardless of things in our path. We're going to persist. Well, guess what? All of a sudden, we're going to build discipline. We're going to keep on going towards our outcome that we desire, and that's building faith within ourselves. So choose to have that type of mindset, not going to give up no matter the circumstances or obstacles in my path. See, I like to say this: circumstances distort perspectives, and perceptions are ruined by bad expectation. See, past progress is evidence for future accomplishment. If you succeeded at something in the past, all you have to do is reinforce those same inputs and you get similar outputs. The problem is our circumstances can distort this perspective. As I look at the obstacle in my path or the lack of evidence that proves my beliefs, as I look at that and I focus on it, that produces a sense of doubt within me. And doubt is focusing on the evidence that denies my belief. So as I focus on my lack of evidence, or as I focus on my opponent or obstacle in my path, as I focus on it, that gets amplified in my mind. I understand more of ways I could lose, more of the low probability of me winning. And because of that, it ruins my perception. Your perception is what you notice and how you choose to respond to it. But because I'm focused on the negative, I start becoming more aware of the negative, and that gives me a negative response. I know I could win because of my past progress, but because I'm focused on the negative, I have doubt, and that ruins my expectations. I believe I can win. But when we once again choose to focus on the positive, like point one said, and we have the type of faith that persists regardless of knowing when the outcome is going to come, guess what? We're going to have action-driven faith, and that's going to make us more disciplined. We're going to put forth the effort to get the results we want to do because we don't have distorted perspectives and we don't have bad perceptions. The more you long for an outcome, the more you love an outcome that you believe could be true, the more likely you are to put forth action to make that become a reality. For example, in the past, I loved the NBA. I loved the aspiration of being in the NBA. And because of that love, I had action-driven faith. I was motivated to put forth work, to put in discipline so I could reach the outcome I was desiring to become a reality. In the same way, you have to love your outcomes because love is going to drive action, faith-driven action. And that leads us to the fourth way to have faith-driven action, and that's through sacrifice. See, I love what Jordan Peterson said. He said, belief is measured by what you're willing to sacrifice. The more you're willing to sacrifice, the more you actually believe in that thing. That's a frame I gave to my friend. He's atheist, and he's like, man, I don't believe in God. I can't believe in God. And I told him, hey, it may not be a feeling, but if you're willing to die for God, that shows you believe in God because you're willing to sacrifice everything you are. Now, whether or not that is true, that's a great frame to have because it'll drive you towards action. See, a lot of people have been placed in a position where they either had to affirm their faith and die or deny what they said was true and they could live. And because of that, all of a sudden in that moment, they had a great burst of motivation, a great burst of inspiration, all the discipline in the world to actually die for what they said they claimed to believe. Why? Because it shows how much they actually believe it. They were placed in a position where they had to live that out. But a lot of us are not placed in that position. We don't have to live out what we say is true. I don't have a gun to my head saying, hey, do you believe this or do you not believe this, right? So I'm not always motivated to live out what I say is true. I don't always have action-driven faith because it's not a requirement. However, when I'm placed in a position where it is a requirement, all of a sudden I have more discipline. So one example of this. Well, one thing I believe is true is that wives should submit to their husbands and husbands should love their wives. So right now, because I'm not married, I'm not in a position where I can live out that belief. But when I get married, that shows how much I actually believe is true through my actions. So because I'm placed in a position where I have to now live out my belief, I'm able to have the discipline and motivation to live it out so I can affirm that what I said was true, I actually believe it is true. So place yourself in different positions, different situations where it's not life or death. I'm not asking for that, but just where it's a necessity for you to live out what you say is true. And that, whether through ego or whether through simply showing other people you really believe it, that'll motivate you to put forth action to believe what you say you believe. And by having those four things, when you focus on evidence that proves your beliefs, when you choose to have intensity, choose to put forth effort to confirm your beliefs, whether or not you know when they're going to be confirmed, and then when you choose to actually have love towards your beliefs are driven not by requirement, not by religion, your beliefs are driven by love. And then when you're willing to sacrifice your beliefs, guess what? You have action-driven faith. And by having action-driven faith, you're going to have more discipline, because it takes discipline in order for you to live out your beliefs that you say are true. That's how you use your beliefs to become more disciplined. Thank you guys for watching. I try to post at least 2 videos about discipline every single week. Also, if you have any opportunities for me to speak for you about discipline, I would love to do so. Whether it's a team or a church or organization, hit me up at austin_inspiration.daily. There's no charge required. I would love to speak to whoever you want me to speak for. Also, if you want to learn how to become more influential, I wrote this book. It's called Controlling the Controllables: How Anyone Can Become Influential. And it teaches you how to become influential through having discipline, through being self-controlled. Because the truth is, when we lead by example through our actions, we can influence others to also control their actions so they can get better outcomes. So check this out on my website, austinmurray.com. Also, make sure to subscribe and reach out to me at austin_inspiration.daily for any speaking opportunities you may want me to speak about discipline for. And thank you guys for watching.